What's going on YouTube? This is Shademus99, and this episode I am going to go over some epic ideas I have for Epic War 2. Or am I? I tricked all of you. I tricked you all. I fooled you, bamboozled you. Believe it or not, this is my Epic War 2 review video. That's right, it's happening. Last one? Pinch yourself, you must be dreaming. This is it. This is real. This is factual. I have heavily procrastinated doing an official review video because the first one was very taxing on me, even though I feel like I made most of the problems in the first one myself. I mean, the recording it wasn't very hard, the editing wasn't very hard, it was just kind of like building up the motivation to do it. But that was Epic War 1, and I feel like Epic War 1 just wasn't a very interesting game to talk about. And, I mean, most of it's in part due to the fact that Epic War 1 is just a very simple game. There's not a whole lot to say about it, yet somehow I managed to make that video like 40-something minutes long. How do you guys watch my stuff sometimes? I don't know. Epic War 2 is a different story. You see, a long time ago, a very young Shademus99 sat down and played a little game called Epic War 2. Now, at this point in time, Shademus99 had not actually started to enjoy playing the Epic War games at all. In fact, he quite despised them, because of the end from Epic War 1 made Shademus99 feel very unhappy, and he played Epic War 2 mainly because his friend Lasmalin asked him to, and he said he would, and he had no reason not to. I didn't ever hate the game, but I went into Epic War 2 kind of with it, if that makes sense. I wasn't really vibing with it. But I will tell you that by the end of Epic War 2, I was thoroughly in love with the franchise and eager to move on to the third game. Now, obviously, if you've most of you weren't here around whenever I actually recorded Epic War 2. If you were, you'd know that there was a large hiatus I took somewhere along the middle of it. I think it was whenever I unlocked Elves, and I was like, I gotta level up the Elves and make a video on it. I just stopped playing for like 2 months, but that was because Navy stuff. But I came back to it, and I ended up finding a renewed passion for it. So, with making this review video, there's definitely a lot more that I want to say, and I really did sit down and I did this with my fingers, and I listened to Polish cow dancing for the entire 10 hours. There's a 10-hour version. I listened to it for 10 hours. And when I tell you the creative juices were flowing, I mean like flowing like how your mom was whenever I went and saw her last night, kind of flowing. Like, oh, the creative juices were good. And I decided that this review video was going to be a lot different from the first one. You see, the first review video, while people say it was one of my best videos, again, I'm not really sure how, there was a lot of things I didn't like about it. And one of the things I didn't like was the way I set it up. It was very stupid, I feel like. Stupid because I didn't really talk about the things I wanted to talk about, because I limited myself to talking about the balancing gameplay and the aesthetics of the game, which are the three categories that I was ranking, which, I mean, there was things I wanted to say, but, I mean, being forced to kind of say it in the context of, oh, how does it affect the gameplay? How does it affect the balancing? Kind of took a little bit out of it for me. So, in this episode, or in this review video, I am actually still going to give a question mark out of 10 rating for balancing gameplay and aesthetics. However, I'm going to do it my way. And my way is that I am going to go in order of this video. I'm going to list the 5 worst things that I hate about Epic War 2 and the 5 best things that I hate about Epic War 2. And I'm going to discuss why I like the things that I like, and I'm going to give some epic suggestions on the things that I don't like. And somewhere along the way, I will stop and I will officially give a balancing gameplay aesthetic score out of 10. It'll be kind of random when it happens, but you'll probably see it coming. And the way I'm going to do this order is I'm going to start with the 5th worst thing, and then I'm going to go to the 5th best thing, 4th worst, 4th best, 3rd worst, 3rd best, 2nd worst, 2nd best, my least favorite part of the game, followed by my most favorite part of the game. There is a lot to talk about. I have some gameplay recorded. I'm going to try to put that in the background just to make it more interesting for the viewer. I'm trying to try not to make this a 40-minute video. Let's get right into the content. All right, so starting out with the my 5th worst favorite thing. I'm so bad at commentary. I'm literally starting and I'm like, let's do this, and then I trip and fall down the stairs with my words. Okay. Compose. The fifth least favorite part of Epic War 2 is crossbow reliance. Yeah, this game also has a crossbow very similar to Epic War 1, and much like Epic War 1, is kind of bougie. It's broken. It's too good. Now, it's not as bad as the crossbow in Epic War 1. Thankfully, the crossbow in Epic War 1 was a whole different beast. But this game's crossbow it's still broken. Don't get me wrong. It can kill most things. But with the whole introduction of revenge waves and things that crossbow alone can't really get rid of, the crossbow doesn't feel like it carries the game similar to how it does in the first game. I mean, you need the crossbow to win in the first game. You physically cannot beat the game with the crossbow without a crossbow in the first game. In this game, the crossbow wasn't even used in the last level after you trigger the final boss. In fact, the crossbow isn't really used for the bosses at all until they get like almost halfway to the map. And then, crossbow reliance comes in, but I feel like this game does a better job at making the crossbow less reliable and having your troops. For example, you get Titan units. Save up mana for Titan units. The Titan units are going to be the things carrying the damage and also stalling these boss units towards the end of the game. Not so much the crossbow, but the crossbow is still going to be your primary damage dealer, and I feel like it still does too much. So I came up with some epic ideas for how to fix it. So my first idea was that the enemy units should get a new unit, or the enemy factions, I should say, should get a new unit. And this is going to be a unit that is unique to the enemy, because why would you want this unit? It's not like the enemy has a crossbow and they're shooting at you. But I actually came up with names for them, and I'm going to read off these names now. The first one is going to be a unique human unit called a siege tower. It's going to be a very tall wooden structure that has wheels and it moves, and it'll fire arrows out of little slits in the wooden structure of the tower. And it will resist 90% of incoming arrow fire. And it'll have a crap ton of health. But it doesn't really do a whole lot of damage. It shoots arrows, but it's not going to do much more damage than your average archer. You might realize the purpose of this unit is not so much to kill you, it's so much to slow down your crossbow's overwhelming power. You see, the AI in this game just kind of sends enemies at you. And it doesn't make sense, because you're literally raining hell down upon them with crossbows. But, they just continuously send units, and the units are just like, la-di-da-di-da. They see their best friend get torn to shreds right in front of them, and he's just like, oh, just didn't see that. I'm just going to keep on going. And it doesn't make sense from a purely strategic sense. It doesn't make sense at all. And I know, we're not going to try to make this game hyper realistic with how humans would act or how people would act in these situations. I think realistically, if I saw my best friend get shredded by a crossbow right in front of me, I'd turn around and run the fuck away, which is probably not going to happen in this game. But it would make sense, and it is something that I feel like is reasonable to implement, to include a unit that doesn't really have a purpose other than to make your crossbow less effective. And then you could even program it so that other units stay behind the crossbow. I don't know, maybe you could include dynamic movement speed in Epic War 2, where if there's the enemy unit will be programmed so that if there's a crossbow tower, they'll automatically slow down so that they are matching the speed of it, so that way they'll forever stay behind it. I mean, that might be something Lasman will look into with the remaster, but it's an idea to keep out there. For the elves, I decided to come up with a spirit tree, or a tree spirit. It is a tall, living tree that staggers across the map. It absorbs, again, 90% of incoming arrow damage, and it'll deliver a weak AoE damage with its roots. It's pretty cool. The roots will come up out of the ground, and they'll kind of just poke at your units. Again, not doing a whole lot of damage. It's more annoying than anything. And another thing I want to note is that these units won't be particularly strong against melee. The whole point is that you want to send out troops to go and kill these units so that your crossbow can be more effective again. It forces you to just act, and you can't just sit there, send out 3 dwarves, and get 9,999 mana. With the introduction of these units, if you try to do that, these siege towers are going to get all the way across the map. Your crossbow's not going to do anything. and they're going to have units on top of you, and you're going to be forced to do something. And for the last one, I came up with the Orc Brute. It is a large, beefy orc, and he'll stumble across the battlefield, but his skin will be so thick that only 10% of arrow damage will be dealt to him. So he'll reduce 90% arrow damage. And he'll have a very, very slow, but an actually rather powerful ground pound attack. He's going to kind of lift his arms up like this, and he'll lunge forward, and he'll just slap the ground, and he'll have a big old blast radius. I think it's in character with the orcs, especially, that he have a powerful attack, because the orcs are all about like big beefy units. They don't really care so much about tactics so much as they care about just dishing out damage. So it makes sense this unit is also able to absorb some good arrow fire just because he has thick skin, but he also is aggressive, making orcs a lot more powerful in that regard. And remember, these are only units that the enemy are going to have. You have no reason for these units anyway because you're not getting rained down upon by a crossbow. So that would be really interesting. And that's one of the two ideas I came up with for nerfing the crossbow. You see, I'm trying to stay away from the idea that, oh, the crossbow's overpowered. Let's just make it shoot slower, make it shoot less arrows, make it do less damage. I hate that. I feel like there's ways to resolve the problem without just nerfing everything's stats down to shit. If you do that, then everything's going to be nerfed to shit. The second idea I had, and this idea, whenever I saw this idea in my head, I was like, it's so genius, Lasmalin's jaw is going to hit the floor. Fog of War. No, okay, yeah, sure. Maybe I stole the idea from Epic War 5. But, oh my god. When I tell you that I had a brilliant idea, it's a brilliant idea. So, picture this, right? Battlefield. I'm going to have something up on screen right now so that you can see what I'm visualizing. Battlefield. And on the battlefield, there's going to be clouds covering most of it. You're only going to be able to see a little bit in front of your castle. You can still shoot your crossbow into the clouds, and you can still hit the units on the other side in the clouds, but obviously you can't see them. However, let's take away the clouds real quick. Now you can see a full battlefield. And what I want to do is I want to put 5 torches, or we can call them lanterns, or whatever, along the battlefield, evenly spaced apart. Maybe not 5, maybe like 4. We'll see how it looks in editing. And these torches are not going to be lit. But the thing is that you will have units, and anytime your unit gets up to that torch, your unit will light that torch. And that torch will be lit, and it'll get rid of that fog of war all around it. Therefore giving you more room to see across the map, meaning now you can aim better with your crossbow, and you can see what the enemy's doing. And you can do this all the way up to the 5th torch, which once you lit up the last torch, you'll be able to see the enemy castle. However, if an enemy unit walks up to your lit torch, they will put out the flame, and that whole part of the map will get returned to Fog of War. That means that if you get all the way across the map, you obviously lit all of your torches, you can see the map, and then you trigger a revenge wave, it slaughters you, and it starts moving across the map. As it's moving across the map towards your castle, it's going to put out all the fires. So you're not even going to be able to shoot at it with your crossbow reliably. You have to get another army out there as quickly as possible to hold it off. And I don't know about you, but the whole idea that this big-ass army's coming and they're just putting out all these fires and your visibility is just slowly going to shit, I think that's just genuinely terrifying. But that would help to nerf the crossbow in such a unique and clever way. And it doesn't change the spirit of the game, I feel. I feel like this is a bit of an added challenge, more so than it is a whole new mechanic. I mean, the Fog of War even makes a little bit of sense just from, like, the lore perspective. A lot of times in the lore, your units are in places they're not familiar with, so it makes sense that you would find yourself in a position where you can't see what's 100 feet in front of you. You have to go and light a signal flare or something so that you have that visibility. That was such a genius idea to me, and I hope to God Laszlo hears that and he doesn't just go, disgusting, spits up his lunch, and just proceeds to dislike the video and go back to doing whatever Laszlo does whenever he's not watching my videos over and over again. Why would you do anything other than that, Laszlo? Be honest with me. Be honest with me. But those are my 2 ideas for how to nerf the crossbow reliance in this game. I feel like you could implement one or both of these with great effect. People were complaining that they wanted new units in Epic War 2. I think that adding these units that absorb arrow damage really well would be awesome. But obviously people are going to be like, well, why can't I have it? Well, obviously you can't have it. You're not getting blared at by a crossbow. And then the Fog of War is like just this added level of difficulty that, I mean, you can still play the game rather normally, but now your crossbow can't shoot with pinpoint accuracy across the map. You know, now you have to actually send out units to light these torches, and then you have to make sure the torches stay lit. I mean, it adds more to it. You know, you're doing something. You're not just sitting there waiting for max mana. You're doing stuff. And I think that's really important for maintaining engagement and stopping people from getting bored, because I'll talk about this more later, but this game can get pretty boring sometimes. Alright, so my number 5 favorite thing in this game has got to be the 3-race system. This game, Epic War 2, is such a perfect sequel to the first game because it really does expand upon all the things that the first game had. First game had one civilization that you could run with, and that civilization happened to have humans, it happened to have a mixture of elves, and, well, it didn't have any orcs at all, did it? No, you didn't have any orc units in the first game, but you had an elf unit and you had a human unit. And in the second game, that's expanded upon. Now there's a whole civilization for elves, and now there's a whole civilization for orcs, which I guess is a faction that's never even really been brought up before. The orcs actually, never mind, the enemy units in the first game appear as units that the orc faction can use. Goblins and the ogres, for example. That's what I was thinking, because I knew the orcs were in the first game somewhere. They were on the enemy units team. That makes sense. But you get these 3 factions in this game, and you start with humans, and at like level 7 or so, I don't remember if it's level 7 or level 9. I haven't played the game in a while, actually. And you unlock elves, and then later on, you'll fight a level called Orcs with Honor, and I think that's like level 13 or 14. You'll unlock orcs, and they're playable civilizations, and they have their own set of units. They have 7 unique units, and they have a unique titan. And that is so freaking cool that you get the choice of which team you want to take into the finale. You can stay back, you can level them all up, or you can just ignore the fact that they exist and you can continue playing as the humans. I love the fact that you get the choice. Choice is such a valuable thing in a game like this, and it is something that was really well executed. There's a lot of issues with the whole 3 different races. I'll talk about that later in the video. But just the fact that there are 3 different races, really, really awesome, and easily one of my favorite parts of this game. And as if to piggyback off of talking about the 3 races, my 4th least favorite thing in this game is got to be the absolutely terrible synergy between them. And what do I mean by synergy is that you get them, it's implied through the lore that they're working together. The 3 different factions make up the Brothers of Destiny, or whatever they were called, and it implies that they work together to get to the Lord of Hell at the very end of the game. However, you can only play as one of the 3 civilizations, and when you're playing as one of the civilizations, you don't ever see any of the other 2. It doesn't make sense, does it? They work together. The Sons of Destiny, that's not the Brothers of Destiny, the Sons of Destiny. They're working together as one coherent team. They've put their differences aside to kill the Lord of Hell, but whenever you're playing as any of them, you don't see the other 2 ever. And it just doesn't make sense. It's not very thematic, and there's so much room to make really cool stuff happen. Right? And, of course, I came up with some ideas. So the first thing I came up with was called a passive boost. Once you get to the level 5 upgrade for each upgrade path, which I believe the upgrade paths, there's 5 of them. The castle, you can upgrade your crossbow, barracks, archery range, and then the one that lets you upgrade magic units. The something, I don't remember. But once you get to the level 5 upgrade, you will unlock a passive boost. Right? Passive boosts will apply to every single one of your 3 factions, regardless of which one you're playing. I wrote an example here. For example, at level 5, if you upgrade the level 5 barracks for the orcs, a passive boost of plus 10% damage and 10% resistance to all melee units will be unlocked, which will take effect for both the humans and elves if you choose to play as them. So, say you get to level 5, you buy the level 5 barracks upgrade, you'll get that passive boost, and now if you go and play as the elves, that passive 10% extra damage and 10% resistance to melee damage will carry over. It doesn't even matter if you're playing as elves, all of your melee units are going to have plus 10% damage and plus 10% resistance. Does that make sense? That's a passive boost, and every upgrade will have one. It gives you the incentive to go and level up the orcs and the elves once you unlock them, because those passive boosts are actually going to add up pretty fast. And they will help you out in the late game by giving your units a much needed extra boost when going up against much more powerful enemies. That is what I mean by a good synergy. You actually get to see the other factions helping you out, but I took it a step further. When unlocking a race, they will send troops to your aid in battle if you're not playing as them. So for example, if you're playing as the humans and you have elves unlocked, the elves will occasionally send you archers or apprentice units, right? And as you upgrade your faculties, they will send you even more powerful units like phantom archers, the dryads, even protectors towards the late game. And they'll just send them out. Like it'll be like the enemy AI sends out enemy units randomly. Occasionally, the elves will send out a couple of units to help you, and you don't have to do anything. It doesn't cost you any mana. They'll just send out units to aid you in battle. I think that's pretty sick. Now, you can build up a bigger army that's composed of both say, elves and orc units that are coming to help you, and it makes sense that they would come to help you. I mean, you're all working together as the Sons of Destiny or whatever. It makes sense that they would help you. Not only are you getting passive boosts from their existence, but as you level up your stuff, they're sending you units, too, to aid you. You can feel their presence. You can feel that they're there, even if you're not playing as them. Does that make sense? That's the synergy I'm talking about. So I came up with one last idea for a super cool passive ability, a passive boost. When upgrading your castle to level 5, along with being able to purchase your Titan, you will also unlock a very special passive boost, a unique passive boost, and I'm going to list them off. For elves, when your castle is at 66% HP, a mighty elf army composed of protectors and dryads will appear to help you out. For humans, when you're at 40% HP, a barrage of paladins will come to your aid. And for orcs, when your castle gets to 20% HP, a pack of beast riders and totems will appear to help you clear out the threat. You see what I did there? If you get all 3 passive upgrades for the castle, for all 3 factions, you'll have 3 revenge waves on your castle that'll come to help you. If you're getting your ass beat, and your castle gets knocked down to 2/3 of its health, elves will send out some units to help you. If it gets knocked down to 40%, humans will send out some units to help you. Now note that it's passive, so even if you're playing as humans, and your castle gets to 40%, a pack of paladins will still appear at no mana cost to you. It is a backup reserve unit that is waiting for the opportunity to lunge into action if the going gets tough. How does that sound? Does that sound kind of neat? You get friendly revenge waves that'll help you not die. And again, it's a great reward for taking the time to go back and level up and max out your elves and your orcs after you unlock them, because realistically, you can just beat the game with humans. You can unlock elves and orcs and just forget about them. You can just take humans all the way to Lord of Hell and beat his ass with angels until he dies, because his AI is dumb. But this is what I mean by, like, terrible synergy. There's so much potential for making these units work together and for it to feel amazing in game, for you to physically be able to see the rewards for the extra time you spent grinding for these new civilizations. You can physically see the rewards in the passive boosts they give you, in the troops that they send to help you, and then in the revenge waves that they'll send to attack the enemy whenever your castle's low. For me, that would be just absolutely splendid. So moving on to my 4th favorite part of this game has to be, without a doubt, the different unit diversity itself. This game has surprisingly good balancing for the units of their factions. In fact, I'm actually working on a video right now where I'm going to actually try to figure out if humans, elves, or orcs, I'm going to try to figure out which one has the best total combo of units. So it's not easy. It's not easy. And if I asked you which civilization is the best, everybody would have a different answer. Somebody might say, oh, obviously elves because ice is OP. And someone else might say, well, orcs are better because they have totems. Oh, no, humans are better because of paladins. You understand? Like, the balancing and the variety and the fact that every single one of these three civilizations is so different. It is so different. Humans are, and I believe the game even describes humans as resourceful, describes elves as elegant, and it describes orcs as brutal. And it shows. It freaking shows. I don't know exactly how the humans are portrayed as resourceful. I don't even know how one would be portrayed as resourceful. Other than that, yeah, I don't know. The way I see the unit diversity is that elves are very range based, orcs are very melee based, and humans are a perfect balance of both. With the paladins being an amazing melee unit, knights are really good melee units, and the crossbowman is probably one of the best ranged units in the game because of how fast he is, and he has a lot of health, resists a lot of stuff, and can just take a beating, and he dishes out decent damage. Whereas you have elves that have this really powerful ice damage. You have phantom archers that can shoot freezing shots, and you have dryads that can shoot these freezing magic blasts. And as well as the ice elemental arrow, you're gonna be freaking knocking the shit out of the enemy, or you're gonna get the shit knocked out of you. And it's so difficult to deal with that really powerful ice damage if it starts to stack up, because all your units are just getting frozen. It's why elven revenge waves are probably the worst ones, because ice is the most powerful element by a landslide. And then you have orcs that have a lot of really good melee damage. Orcs have the orc fighter, like the basic level 1 fighter unit, actually has a pretty decent lineup of stats. If it's not getting killed by your arrows, you notice it actually kind of does a decent job at killing everything. And then you have trolls that do a shit ton of damage. Trolls are the best of the best. They are actually, I've done research. Trolls, or not trolls, ogres. The trolls are the ones that throw the rocks. They suck. The ogres, the green ones, their stats are freaking awesome. Compared to their counterparts, the knights and the assassins, the ogres are freaking beasts. And then, of course, you finally finish off with beast riders, which aren't particularly great, but they're not as expensive, so you can spam them out. I think that was the intention of beast riders, is that you're just trying to spam them out. But you play every single race different. There's different powerhouse combos that work. Crossbowman paladin, whereas with the orcs, you'll be probably using a mixture of ogres, beast riders, and a fuck ton of totems. Totems are the most powerful unit in the game, hands down. Actually, for power per mana cost, the most powerful unit in the game is the dwarf, believe it or not. I'll talk about the dwarf more later, though. Totems are pretty damn good, too, though, but are pretty expensive as well. And then, with elves, you got all these archers, elven archers, the phantom archers, the dryads, and they're just, you're murdering from afar. And every single different civilization just feels so good to play with, to play against. It just feels like a unique experience every time. And it's crazy because they've managed to make it so that whenever you're playing against the AI, whenever you're fighting humans, it's a totally different fight than when you're fighting elves. That's just completely different. The way you go about it, the way you fight them off, the way they fight you back. It doesn't feel like the same race, the same civilization, copied and pasted 3 times over. It genuinely feels like each race has so much love and care put into it, and each race plays so differently. There's so much diversity, which is something Epic War 1 just didn't have. Which is why it takes the number 4 spot as my 4th favorite part of this game. The fact that there's 3 things I like more than this is just a testament to how good this game actually is. Getting to number 3 of the things I don't really like about this game, my 3rd least favorite thing has got to be the absolutely abysmal spells. There are 3 spells in this game. One of them is called Holy Swords, Another one is called a Meteor Storm, and the last one is called Super Arrows. Super Arrows is actually not bad. However, its extremely long cooldown mixed with the fact that it doesn't last very long makes it kind of underwhelming. It's really cool because your castle is blaring arrows out like crazy, completely kills your frame rate. And then you do it like 4 or 5 times and you're like, "Damn, I kind of wish that was better. I wish there was more." It feels like it's a lot at first, but then you're like, "I kind of wish there was more." um and the Holy Swords and the Meteor Storm are just terrible. I mean, they're free. They don't cost any mana to activate. However, I would not be opposed to changing it to where they do cost mana to activate. They still have a cooldown, but now you have to pay mana for them. But in exchange, they'll do a lot more. They'll have quicker cooldowns. You pay a couple hundred mana, and Holy Swords. Maybe Holy Swords. The swords will be bigger. They'll deal a shit ton more damage. They'll stun even Titan units. The Meteor Storm will rain down for a lot longer. It'll have a lot more consistency on what it hits. It can stun big units. You got to pay mana, of course. And I think the most interesting one is maybe the Holy Swords will do lightning damage. The Meteor Storm will do fire damage. And there wouldn't be a spell to do ice damage unless you add another spell to the game. Another spell that does ice damage specifically. And one last idea I had for super arrows that could make it a little bit more fun is, one, to make the duration of it last longer, but two, give your crossbow more range. It can shoot even further while super arrows is active. It makes sense. The arrows are leaving the crossbow with more force, so therefore they're going to travel further before the gravity takes hold of them and sends them into the ground. I'm not saying it's powerful enough to shoot all the way off the enemy side of the screen, but maybe powerful enough that it can hit enemies that are hiding behind the castle. I don't think the arrows should be able to damage the castle, but maybe you can strategically use super arrows to kill a bunch of archers hiding behind the castle. That's an idea, right? I'm not going to talk too much about the terrible spells. I despise them. They're pretty bad, but I don't think it's going to take too much imagination or too much work to fix them, right? So moving on to my third favorite part of this game has to be the elemental damage types. You see, the elemental damage types were explored in the first game. There were units that did elemental damage. For example, the blue dragon could freeze things. At least I think it could. The elder dwarf could stun units. He had a little stun attack. The tickle fingers has his little fire damage. The elements were already there in the first game. But what they did was they made the second game and they incorporated these elements, and they put these elements at the core of all three races. Humans have lightning, elves have ice, orcs have fire, and the entire race is built around this element. And man, is it cool! The lightning damage that paladins can do with their powerful attack, the freeze attacks that protectors, as well as the phantom archers and the dryads, and the fire attacks from the totems and the beast raiders. I mean, the fire, the elemental, ice, thunder, fire, it's everywhere in this game. It's so potent that if you're a unit that doesn't do an elemental attack type, you're probably not a very good unit. There is a bit of a discrepancy between the power of each element. Ice is, like I said, like twice as good as thunder. Thunder's like twice as good as fire. I think fire just does extra damage. Thunder can stun you, but ice will freeze you, and the freeze and the stun are the same thing, but the freeze lasts like 3 times as long. So, and the freeze can affect 2 units that the lightning can't. Well, the lightning can affect them, but it'll affect them for like a fraction of a second, whereas freeze will affect them for a 1 or 2 seconds, which is a significant difference. And that's going to be your Archdemon as well as your Red Dragon. Those units can be frozen. I'm pretty sure every unit can be frozen, but those units, when they get frozen, since they are fire damage dealing types, I feel like anyway, at least from what I've seen, they take worse freeze damage. So yeah, elemental damage, my third favorite part of the game. I don't want to talk too much about it. I feel like I've already explained it really well. Let's move on to my second least favorite part of the game. Now we're going to get to the 2 parts of this game that genuinely make the experience terrible. And number 2 is going to surprise you. My second least part of the game, and the thing that absolutely breaks this game in my opinion, are the Hobbit and the Dwarf units. Boom! Bet you weren't expecting that I called those two units out. Those two units absolutely shit on most of the things I like about this game. The things I like about this game are the unit variety, the different races. None of it fucking matters. Look at the 7 units at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and put a line on the screen that separates these units into good and bad. The good are on the right and the bad are on the left. Why are the units on the left bad? Well, the units on the left are bad because you can reload the game 3 times and get a unit that is better than all of them at a cheaper price. The dwarf is the best unit in the game when you compare his power to his mana cost. A unit should not be able to do what he can do for 50 mana. It is ridiculous. I don't need to ever buy a fucking squire. I don't need to buy an orc fighter. I don't even need to buy any of the archer units, the lower level archer units. I don't even need to buy them. I can buy one dwarf and my crossbow and get 9,999 mana on most levels. Maybe the later levels I'll buy like 4 or 5 dwarves. I don't need to buy anything else. There's nothing else that needs to be bought. I don't need to spend money on these new... I don't even need like the knights or the ogres. I don't even need them. The dwarf is almost as good as the knight and the ogre, even though it costs like a third of what they cost. It completely breaks all of the things that make this game fun. The balancing that was really well done for the 3 races is just shattered because I'm going to use this unit that's not even attached to any of the races, by the way. The dwarf unit is a bonus unit. It's a reference to the first game. And it completely just overdoes. It's overpowering all these other units that I would love to see being used, but they're just not going to be used because they're not good enough. They're not good enough because this bully-ass dwarf is just walking in there taking up all the spotlight. It completely takes away from a lot of the things that make this game special. And the Hobbit. The Hobbit unit makes the Goblin unit just as bad as the Cleric and the Healer. And the Cleric and the Healer are broken units. They're not even bad, they're broken. Not in a good way. They're broken as in they don't work. Goblins are fucking awful. They cost more than the Hobbits, and they move slower, and they deal less damage. Why the fuck would I ever use a Goblin when I can use a Hobbit instead? You tell me. Give me one good justification for using Goblins over Hobbits under any condition. No, you can't, because there is no justification. I think that an easy way to fix this is to either make it harder to unlock these units, or what I would personally do is just increase the mana cost. I would flip the mana cost of Goblins and Dwarves. I think Hobbits should cost 20 to 25 mana to summon one. The Goblins should cost 10. That makes more sense. I would be more tempted to use Goblins if that was the case, because Hobbits are actually kind of expensive. I think that the Dwarf could easily cost 100, 150 mana without even changing his stats at all, and it would still be a pretty damn good deal. That just goes to show how broken they are because of how cheap they are. Now, mind you, all the other unlockable units that you get through achievements, like the bomber and the dragon and the angel, those don't really change the game too much. I don't like how later on in the game becomes reliant on them. I wish that the game from start to finish would just rely on the 7 units that you get for your race, as well as your Titan unit, and then you have these optional 6 units that you can use. They're not as good, but you can use them if you want to go for like a certain strategy that might require using them. That's personally how I wish the game went about it. But those 6 units, those achievement units, well, I guess 5, because you unlock the 6th one after you beat the game, basically. But those 5 units are so good that you don't even need to use any other unit from the race itself. You can just use a mixture of dwarves, hobbits, bombers, save up some money, get a dragon and an angel, and you can beat most levels. You don't ever need to upgrade anything. You can just max up your mana to 9,999, leave everything else at level 1, maybe upgrade your crossbow, because a level 1 crossbow in the later levels is pretty bad. And then just use the bonus units to win, and you probably will. So, yeah, there's definitely a problem with that. I think the solution, as much as I said earlier, I don't like nerfing things, I think that the best thing to do with these guys is to either make it harder to unlock them or make them more expensive. I could sit here and come up with a bunch of really interesting ways to unlock these units. I think that there should be one of them definitely that has a time limit on it. Like you'll unlock like the dwarf after you play the game for 45 minutes or something. The game clocks you in as playing for 45 minutes, and then it'll just automatically unlock. And the bomber, I like the bomber a lot. I like his I like his unlock condition. You have to die 3 times. Hobbit, you literally just have to read the credits and the instructions, and you'll just automatically unlock Hobbit. Definitely got to make that harder. I wouldn't be surprised if like you could incorporate a way that you have to do a certain series of events to unlock it, and you can even have it to where like if you pan the mouse over the achievement will give you a hint on how to unlock it. Like it'll be like a cryptic hint, but if you read it, it'll give you a clue basically on what you need to do to unlock it. I mean, that would be kind of cool. I also don't like that the 6th one is the Archdevil fuzzy fucker. I don't like that you unlock him after you beat the game, because after you beat the game, this game is a lot like the first game. There's like little to no replay value unless you beat the game and then you decide to go and play with elves and orcs. But at that point, what's the point, right? So yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, this is the part where I'm actually going to give one of the 3 overarching categories a rating, and that's going to be balancing out of 10. Now, if it weren't for the Hobbit and the Dwarf, I'd give this game like an 8 out of 10 for balancing, but these 2 units completely trash it. This game gets a 3 out of 10 for balancing. Yeah, that's pretty low, actually. I think that's almost the same as Epic War 1. That is how much I feel like the Dwarf and Hobbit completely shatter what this game was supposed to be. And I hope to God it gets fixed in the relaunch. Laz, talking to you, big boy. Let's talk about my second favorite part of this game. The thing that was almost my favorite part, but isn't really my favorite part. And again, it might be kind of a surprise to you, but I really like the bosses in this game. There are 3 bosses. One of them is a giant frog, with a name I can never remember. One of them is the End, a returning enemy from Epic War 1. And the last one is the Lord of Hell, which isn't really a good boss, but I mean, the Lord of Hell is a boss. I don't really like him. The boss fight kind of sucks. I mean, Epic War has the tendency to disappoint at the last hurdle, but I liked the 2 bosses before him. I liked them a lot, and I liked them because they were very thematic. The lore of this game has you building up to this grand fight, and then you're getting hit by these obstacles, these big-ass bosses. They feel like hurdles. They feel like the natural progression of things. You just unlocked your Titan units. You've got the most powerful units in the game at around the same time that the enemy unlocks boss units. Units that come out after a castle dies and absolutely tries to wash you off the face of the earth. It is so climactic, and it just builds that hype up towards that final encounter. Unfortunately, the final encounter is a letdown, but I'm actually not going to give... You might be thinking, oh, that must mean his least favorite part of the game must be the Lord of Hell. No. I don't even dislike the fight. I just wish that his AI wasn't so stupid. I don't even dislike the concept of the fight. The whole fact that he hits the ground and he hits your castle. I just think that fight could have been done better. I feel like they should have balanced it a lot more. But, yeah, the frog fight especially. I remember the first time I fought the frog. It was the most exhilarating feeling ever. And you can go back and watch that video. I watched it, and I could tell watching it, I was so excited to be fighting the frog. I was so invested. And then the end, when I fought the end, and I was like, oh my god, it's the fucking tower again. And it looked so cool in this game. It has like a tail. It's so bizarre, but it looks sick. And not only are they awesome, not only do they build hype, not only are they very climactic, but they're very thematic. With the fact that you're slowly growing your Sons of Destiny, kind of fits in with the lore a little bit. I know in the lore you kind of go down to like 10 units, like 6 times, and then magically you have a whole army again. But in the lore, you're making all these alliances, you're coming together, you're becoming a genuine threat to the shadows, to the darkness, to the Lord of Hell. You are becoming a genuine threat, and he is sending his biggest, most powerful enemies to kill you. It makes sense. From a purely logical point of view, The Lord of Hell sees the fact that your resistance is pushing further than he thought it would. He's not taking any chances. He's sending his biggest, baddest units to stop you. And you're killing them, and you're stopping them, and you're fighting them, but it's not an easy fight. I love that. I love the whole idea of it. I love that the bosses got unique castles. I think that the coolest castle in any epic war game, hands down, is got to be the Frog Castle. I just can't remember his name, man. It's like Hua Joa or something like that. He had like a weird name. But that castle just looked so clean. Like, it was so cool. And the fight was cool. It's just so invigorating, entertaining, and it feels like a worthy adversary for what must be at this point hours of playing, potentially grinding, getting your other units maxed out, your other civilizations maxed out. And then you're approached by these bosses, and it just feels so deserved. It feels so satisfying, and I loved it. It really brought the game together for me. It really put the nice little bow tie on top. Now, I think it could have been a lot better if the final boss had been better, but honestly, I'm not even going to shit on the final boss that much because the two bosses before it were honestly climactic enough as it was. I think that the two bosses before him were so good that they are the reason why his boss fight is so bad. I mean, obviously the mechanics are weird. He's not very balanced, but all in all, I feel like if there weren't any bosses before him, and you were just grinding levels until you got to him, I feel like people wouldn't have as many complaints about him as they do. But the two bosses before him just set that standard so high. That's why my second favorite part of this game has got to be the bosses. And now, I will judge the gameplay aspect of this game, taking all things into account, units, different civilizations, different races, that feeling of progression, which is not as strong as it was in Epic War 1, but still pretty damn good. And then, of course, the bosses at the end, really putting your skills to the test, the introduction of revenge waves, that absolutely changed the entire dynamic. Now you're having to contemplate playing defensive, saving up mana. All of these things come into play, and of course I'm going to have to dock off a few points because, yeah, it's pretty easy to just save up to get max mana and then spam your Titan unit, so gameplay-wise, you can cheese the system pretty damn easily, but still, the game does try to put up a really good fight. There's a lot of kinks to work out. I've talked about a lot of them. I'm giving gameplay a 7 out of 10 for Epic War 2. And with that, I will move on to my least favorite part of this game. There is a reason why I am talking so slow. This game is slow. This game is so fucking slow. The battlefield isn't even that long. The things just walk so fucking slow. Like, run! Run! Fucking run! Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? This game is so fucking slow. And God, it sucks. It's so bad. I think everyone will agree this is the worst part of Epic War 2. I don't even really need to go too much in depth about it. I can just show it to you how dreadfully slow this fucking game is. And I had one idea for how to make it faster, and that was the idea is pretty simple. One, increase the overall speed of how units move, make everybody move just a little bit faster. But another idea was that every time you level up a unit, every unit has 3 levels, by the way, level 1, 2, and 3, make them move a little bit faster with each level. That way at level 3, you're moving a lot faster than you were at level 1, so that way it doesn't feel like you're banging your head up against the fucking computer screen waiting for that fucking unit to get across the map and do something. Obviously, I think like your Titan units just need to move faster. The achievement units need to move faster. I think the game just needs to move fucking faster. There were some suggestions about shorten the map. No, you don't need to shorten the map. The map doesn't need to be shortened. The map is fine. The units just need to fucking move like they have a purpose. They're driving like a 76-year-old woman with dementia down the interstate in a goddamn pickup truck. Fucking 40 miles an hour down the interstate. That's what this game feels like. Put on the gas. And I know people keep saying, because people don't want to actually think about a genuine solution, so they're like, put a 2x speed option. 5x speed up. 60 times speed option. And Lazulin sees that, and he starts like frothing at the mouth. Like Lazulin starts going rabid. Lazulin's like hissing at the screen whenever he sees someone mention a speed up option. And I agree. Speed up options are dumb. Kinda. Zerny's mod 3.0 is going to have a 2x speed option, and I'm not going to complain about it whatsoever. But I understand why Lazulin doesn't want there to be speed up options in any of the games come the remastered, because hopefully the games will be fun enough in and of themselves that you wouldn't want to speed them up in the first place, right? To add a speed up option is to basically admit my game is boring and I am giving you a little cheat sheet to help you get through it. Let's not do that. But at the same time, let's not forget this game is fucking slow. And at number 1, my most favorite thing in Epic War. If you know me, you probably know the answer to this one. The story. Hands down, the reason why I like this game, the reason why this game gave me a passion for the Epic War games, the reason why this game made me fall in love with the franchise was because of the story. And I know what you're thinking, but Shademus99, the story fucking sucks. And yes, I know it sucks. It's not a good story, but it's a story. I think that the fact that the developers knew they didn't have the capability to make a super realistic, super awesome story. They just didn't have the knowledge of the English language. They didn't have the money to hire a good writer. The fact that they knew this, they had this limitation, and they chose to write a story anyway. I think there is no greater display of passion and love that one could put into a project. To add something unnecessary that is not going to be of high quality, but to add it for the simple fact that you have a vision for it and you don't want to make sacrifices because you genuinely care about what you're doing. It was whenever I started reading this story that I realized Epic War is a game with a lot of love that is put into it. There's a lot of passion that was put into it. It's not just a knockoff indie game. It's not just a wannabe stick wars. It's a unique game. A unique game that had a lot of unique thoughts, a lot of unique care, a lot of love that was put into every aspect of it. And the limitations where there are limitations, the flaws where there are flaws, are almost always because ArtLogic Studios was a small indie company. They just didn't have the funding to polish it as much as they wanted to. Maybe a lot of them were inexperienced programmers. There was limitations with the Flash player. That's why all the art has been downscaled. All these limitations. But this game still exists. Terrible story, but the story still exists. This game's story, is what made me feel love and passion for this game. Because I could feel the love and passion that the developers had put into this game. I don't think the developers sat there and said, I have something special on my hands here. I think the developers sat there and said, we have something ordinary and we want to make it special. We are committed to making Epic War special. Hence Epic War 2. Hence the story. Despite how bad it was, you could tell with each and every iteration of that story, each character interaction, however goofy and quirky and kind of weird it might be, the fact that your main character is kind of a snarky smartass, all of it had so much heart put into it, and I felt it. So much more than the pretty decent balancing they did on all the units in the game, and all the factions and the races and making them so dynamic. I could tell there was thought, genuine thought and effort put into that. But I felt the love the most when I was reading how epic this story really was. And for that, I'll give the aesthetics 10 out of 10. I hope that you all enjoyed this style of making a review video a lot more than you did the first one. For one, I don't want this video to be as long. And another, I had a lot that I wanted to talk about with this game. This game is the game that made me love this franchise. There's a reason why I liked it more than Epic War 4 and Epic War 3. Epic War 5 beats this game, but only because that game was just so much more polished. It would be foolish to say that it's inferior to, that it's inferior to this one. But this game has so much potential. I think that in the remaster, this game has the most potential to grow and improve and to be the best version of itself that it could possibly be. I think that the second game with the most potential is probably 4. And then probably 3, then 5, then 1. I think 1, you're going to have to do a lot of work on 1 for it to have any potential because it's such a simple game. But this game is the game where you can really make magic happen. Add the Black Dragon as a playable character. Add some new levels. Add trials. Add trials. After you beat the Lord of Hell, add some fucking trial levels. Make some replay value. Maybe give us a reason to use the freaking Archdevil unit. You know? But I think with that, I mean, I've said everything I wanted to say about this game. I really hope that if you don't agree with everything I said, that's okay. Fuck you. Just kidding. I love you. Please like and subscribe. I don't know why I'm always so demotivated to make these videos, but it does feel good to talk about something that I genuinely do have a passion for. And I do have a passion for this game. I've poured a lot of time into recording and making these videos, and you know, it's not, I'm not a very naturally talkative person. I'm actually quite the quiet person in real life, so to sit down for an hour and just talk to a camera, like, it just doesn't feel normal. But I do it because I genuinely enjoy it. I enjoy doing something that I don't normally do because I feel like I'm doing it for a good cause. And yeah, I mean, well, let me discuss some key points before I end this episode. So, when's the Epic War 3 review going to come out? Will the Epic War 3 review be like this one? Probably. Actually, yes. The Epic War 3 review will most likely be like this one and not like the first one. I like this review style a lot more. I feel like it was easier for me to talk about what I wanted to talk about. Say the things I wanted to say and avoid the topics that are rambling and going off on tangents and whatnot. I feel like I was able to stay focused with this, and I hope that it shows. I'm also going to try to include some gameplay. I'm not going to put too much gameplay, because if I spend too long editing this video, I'm literally never going to finish it. So I'll put editing where editing be due, but editing do be due, editing where it be. But until then, I'm just going to face cam. I am looking into getting BlueStacks up and running and trying to record Epic War 6. But before I do that, I'm probably going to play Saga sooner rather than later. Zerny's mod, I've basically beaten the game. I don't have any motivation to try to beat the end on Epic mode and Insane mode because what the fuck? Zerny, you monster. I think I've done almost everything I wanted to do with that mod. I've showcased it. I'm so happy that I got to be the one to really showcase that mod and to show people who didn't play it what it is, and to show people how good it is and how creative it is. And I really like that I had the privilege to do that, and I'm so happy that I did. I'm glad I decided to play that mod. I'm glad I decided to keep playing that mod, and I'm so excited for 3.0 once it finally comes out. And I'm happy to be a part of the community. It's a really great community. Everybody has their own little unique personalities. You know, the way Zerny talks, and the way Lulan talks, and the way Tastes Like Shit talk. Why the hell is his name Tastes Like Shit? You know, and then of course Lazmalin, the overarching dictator that he is, like, always watching with his giant hammer, waiting for someone to say something unrelated to Epic War and #Epic War so he can beat the shit out of them. I mean, it's just such a good community. And I am so excited to see the community grow once these games come out on Steam sometime next year, next decade maybe. I don't know. Lazwalin's a very interesting person. But yeah, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and end this off here. Put this bad boy in the editor. Gonna work while I'm still motivated and hope I don't get burnt out. Thank you all so much for watching. I love making videos for you guys. I love seeing the views. I don't care so much about the views, to be honest. I made videos back when they were getting 5, 6 views each. I did it for Lasmalin, although now I do it because it's fun. I'm glad that I have a community behind me now and it's not just Lasmalin. It's awesome.